A character based on an iguana, some kind of lizard, may sound ridiculous. But in the world of Lucha Libre, usually what sounds ridiculous tends to be successful. A dancing skeleton, a saint, a pirate, and even a cyborg have been able to break through and become ídolos. But this is much more than just the story of a funny character. The reason why I'll be talking about him today and the reason why you have heard of him is because the man behind the character never gave up on his idea. And after 16 years, he saw the fruits of staying true to himself. Today in Let's Talk Lucha, we'll take a look at the story of Mr. Iguana. Santiago Ibarra Calderón was born on July 20th, 1988 in Culiacán, Sinaloa. Unlike most luchadores we've looked at, he doesn't come from a family of luchadores. Where did his liking for Lucha Libre come from then? Santiago has said his father enjoyed watching Lucha Libre, but it was his grandpa with whom he would watch boxing and Lucha Libre every week. His grandpa was someone who truly enjoyed watching Lucha Libre with him, often shouting at the TV during the matches. Seeing this, he dreamt of having the same charisma that would make people stand on their feet and shout his name. So even if his family didn't practice Lucha Libre, you could say his love for the sport was inherited by his grandfather. Santiago has said he used to watch AAA and WCW when he was just a kid, remembering luchadores who were full of charisma like La Parka. He grew up in a middle-class family, which meant he had a good education, learning English since he was a kid. This might seem irrelevant, but I believe this advantage has been key in his career to better understand wrestling and connect with the international audiences, since having access to the language also allowed him to better understand other cultures as well. It was also as a young boy that Santiago was bullied at school, leading to him learning martial arts to be able to defend himself. In many interviews, he has expressed that he still loves martial arts, and he practices jiu-jitsu at least a couple of days a week. Santiago debuted in 2009, but it was in 2005 that the idea of becoming a professional luchador entered his mind. It was in that year that he went to study for a semester to the United States, and while being there, he learned of the passing of Eddie Guerrero. Of course, he already knew of Eddie, but seeing the media coverage of his passing and seeing his best moments played out again, he recognized the one characteristic he had admired as a kid: his charisma. He could see Eddie had become an even bigger figure in his last years in the WWE thanks to his charisma more than his wrestling. He had become more popular then than when he had his best technical matches. That made it clear for him. He wanted to be a luchador. And just 2 years later, in 2007, he began training to become one. As I mentioned, Santiago debuted in 2009 already as Mr. Iguana. And just like La Parka, he debuted as a rudo. But people liked him so much because of his charisma that he had to turn técnico. For his first matches, he came out crawling like a lizard. He used a long-sleeved shirt, a vest, and a green tie. And he painted his face as an iguana using black and green paint. He wanted to give the appearance of an executive, and people loved it. He used the title of Mr. because he had seen it in other luchadores like Mr. Águila, also known as Esa Rios, and Mr. Niebla, another charismatic luchador. And he chose the iguana to be part of his persona because he wanted something characteristic of the Culiacán area. There, iguanas are everywhere. Also, he noticed iguanas jumped similar to luchadores doing a plancha from the ring to the outside of it, extending their limbs. In just his second match, Mr. Iguana had an accident which resulted in a broken nose and a huge gash on his forehead. He was out almost a month, and when he came back unannounced to fill in for another luchador, the small arena went nuts. Right there and then he knew Mr. Iguana had great potential. Sadly, the man who had sparked his love for Lucha Libre, his grandpa, died just a few months before he debuted. Mr. Iguana stayed in the independent scene of Sinaloa for a few years, but he realized that he needed to go out of his home state if he wanted to grow. To accomplish this, he set out a challenge to every promoter out there. He said he could give a great match wherever he went and that he could make people react to him no matter what, even being the luchador with the biggest reaction of the night. And what he did is that he put his salary on the line. Many promoters took on the challenge, and as you can imagine, he never lost that bet. He also wrestled a few times in La Arena Coliseo of Guadalajara, which is run by the CMLL. But he said he wasn't accepted because of his style and his physique. He knew he had the skills to make people react, and indeed he did it in his few appearances there. But he was often told to stop acting like an iguana and start wrestling. One referee even threatened to disqualify him if he kept acting silly. It was clear to him that he couldn't be himself in that company, so he didn't stay there. In one of his appearances in Monterrey as an independent, he was seen by Alfredo Alvarado, a promoter, and he was scheduled to another event in Monterrey, which he says was a situation of being at the right place in the right moment. At that event, two prominent figures of the Lucha Libre online community were present, Rob Viper and Lucha Blog. They covered the event and praised the work of Iguana on social media. This meant he suddenly was known on a national and international level, which, as he has said, started the snowball rolling. Somewhere around 2018, Mr. Iguana started teaming with Fresero Jr. in a tag team called Los Parientes, which is an endearing way of calling a friend in the north of Mexico. They worked together as a team all over the country, Fresero being the enforcer and Mr. Iguana being the brains of the team, both full of charisma. Together they were tag team champions in more than one promotion, and everyone wanted to face them. At the same time, he started appearing in the independent scene of the United States, more notably in the CZW promotion, where he had various matches that same year. Suddenly, Mr. Iguana was everywhere, and this was noticed by the other big promotion in Mexico he hadn't worked for, Lucha Libre AAA. 2018 and 2019 were definitely years that changed Mr. Iguana's career. It was then that he started appearing in AAA by date, meaning he didn't have a contract. And it was Conan specifically who brought him over and over to the company because he knew there was something special about him. Sadly for him, his tag team partner Fresero Jr. didn't join him in his appearances in AAA because he had issues with Conan. Given that he didn't have his tag team partner anymore, there was a place to fill, and as you probably know, this place was filled by his faithful companion, La Yesca. La Yesca was gifted to Mr. Iguana by a photographer in California, and he had it with him before a show in which he was facing Taurus, the current Beast Mortos, and Mr. Iguana proposed using it during the match. Taurus wasn't sure about it and he couldn't see how it could work, but they still did it. By the time the match ended, people started throwing money onto the ring, and Taurus had changed his mind. He told Mr. Iguana to always bring La Yesca to his matches. As his matches in AAA became more consistent, he was able to see La Parka's work up close. I'm talking about the second Parka, Jesus Escobosa, who many times was criticized for not wrestling enough in the ring and spending more time giving a show. But this was specifically what made him so intriguing to Mr. Iguana. He admired his ability to command the fans without having to do a lot of physical spots, which was critical for a man who had to wrestle more than once a day on many occasions. Iguana has told the story of them being at the same event in the city of Monterrey in 2019, and Iguana asked him what he thought of his work. This was his opportunity to learn and improve, but La Parka was straightforward and told him he was doing great. He didn't need to change anything and he just had to keep doing what he was doing. This was the same advice that Mr. Niebla, another charismatic luchador, had given him months prior and who sadly would pass away that same year. Mr. Iguana took the compliment and was happy to hear those words from someone he admired so much. Unfortunately, that same night, La Parka was injured in his match when he did a tope suicida. The injury was catastrophic, and just 3 months later, in January of 2020, La Parka passed away. That same January of 2020, Mr. Iguana signed full-time with AAA. And many thought he would take La Parka's place in the company as the most charismatic character. But he remembered what he had been told and he never tried to be someone he wasn't. He stayed true to himself. It was then also that he started being criticized more constantly by other luchadores. One of the most notable ones was El Pirata Morgan, who said it was a disrespect to Lucha Libre that a luchador used a puppet in the ring. Mr. Iguana has said that some luchadores even refused to work with him if he used La Yesca, but it was never the main eventers who refused. It was always mid and lower card talent. He even mentions that Dr. Wagner Jr. was more than willing to work with La Yesca, and it was only luchadores who were never really successful, the ones that were too concerned about their image. Mr. Iguana has explained many times that for him, using La Yesca in his matches is a way of bringing a new twist to Lucha Libre. He claims he does the same things he would do without it, but by adding the interactions with La Yesca, he gets more reactions from the fans. He even claims that it is a good message for the people watching, especially kids, who will probably think twice about hurting a lizard or an iguana because they will recognize it as La Yesca, teaching them that they should be respected and that only bad rudos would hurt animals. As part of AAA, Mr. Iguana stayed in the mid-card, always being featured and having great reactions. He won the Copa Bardal at Triple Mania in 2021, and in 2024 he became the mixed tag team champion alongside La Hiedra. He became a staple of AAA, and everyone who saw him wrestle loved him and, of course, criticized him. Mr. Iguana was gaining popularity, but he needed something more. No, he didn't need to change his gimmick or add new moves. Actually, what he needed was to be seen by a wider audience, one that was used to the idea of being entertained. In 2025, WWE announced the acquisition of Lucha Libre AAA, and soon after they announced their first joint event, which would take place on June 7 in Inglewood, California. In that event, Mr. Iguana was booked to wrestle alongside Aerostar and Octagon Jr., and they would face Dragon Lee, Lince Dorado, and Cruz del Toro. Mr. Iguana was ready. He was confident in his skills, and he knew he would get a great reaction from the people. But then he got nervous just before the event. It was then that he was told that he would be the first luchador to come out after Rey Mysterio's welcoming speech. He had admired Rey Mysterio since he saw him in AAA and WCW, and waiting behind the curtain, he was trembling. But everything changed when he came out. And yes, he came out crawling like he did it for the first time 17 years before, with the same name and still using black and green makeup. That was the night that changed Mr. Iguana's life forever. But he didn't do anything different. He did the same thing he had been doing for many years now. He included La Yesca in the match, he acted like an iguana, he did his signature moves, but when the match ended, one thing was different. He cashed out all that he had invested and trusted in himself. People loved him, people loved La Yesca, people asked where this guy had come from. And in just one day, he became known all around the world. His impact was so big that his t-shirt became one of the top sellers in the WWE shop, and he appeared the next year's Royal Rumble, which would have been unthinkable just 1 year before. In Mexico, he became a sensation, being requested at every AAA event and now being one of the company's biggest stars. Santiago Ibarra Calderón, Mr. Iguana, showed us that the best investment you can make is yourself. When companies wanted him to change, when Lucha Libre legends made fun of him and underestimated him, and when the fans expected him to become someone else because the spot was open, he remained himself. He knew he had what was needed. He took a chance on his talent and on the idea of a character he created in his hometown and rode with it till the world understood its value. To the sound of Póngase Verde, meaning get green, he told the world he wouldn't change, but they could join him. There's still a lot to be written in the story of Mr. Iguana, and only time will tell us how far he will get. But his story has taught us that no matter where he goes, he will remain true to himself. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you liked learning more about Mr. Iguana. Let me know in the comments when you first heard of him, and follow me to learn more Lucha Libre lore. I'm Eric, and I will see you in the next video.